Now we're going to do some quadratic equations. Quadratic equations have an x squared term. They look like this. ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. The a and the b and the c, they're just good old numbers, right? And of course the x's are variable. So the highest power is 2, and you only have one variable. In this case, it's x. When you're solving a quadratic equation, you don't always just get one answer. Sometimes you can have 0, 1, or 2 answers. It depends on if you're going to graph this. Like if I were to take out this 0 and put a y in its place, it would make a parabola. And so you can see some pictures here of parabolas. And depending on where it touches the x-axis, that's how many solutions we should have. If it doesn't touch the x-axis at all, like this top one here, then there's no solutions. If it's just the vertex, that little turning point that touches the x-axis, you only have one. But usually we have two, where that parabola crosses 2 different times on the x-axis. Okay, so here's some ways that we could graph or solve a quadratic equation. The first one is graphing, just like you saw in this previous picture. You graph it and you see where it touches the x-axis. Okay, we're probably not going to do so much of that. We're going to do some factoring and then quadratic formula if you're brave enough. So factoring, it looks like this. If I have two numbers, let's call them a times b. Just pretend those are two numbers. And when I multiply them together, I get 0. What's got to be true about either a or b? Well, if they multiply to give me 0, then at least one of them has to be equal to 0. Maybe a equals 0 or b equals 0, or maybe both of them. That's called the zero product property. So you'd have to factor it and then set both of those factors equal to 0. The last way is using the quadratic formula. And here this b, this a, the c, and the a down there at the bottom, those all come from those numbers from this quadratic equation right up here. The number in front of x squared is a, number in front of x is b, and the number that's left over is my c value. So the way you read it is x is equal to the opposite of b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And usually people sing that to Pop Goes the Weasel, but I'm not gonna. Okay. First step in solving quadratic equation, if we're going to do it algebraically, not graphing, is I'm going to put this in standard form, which means I make it equal 0. Make equal to 0. To do that, I just subtract this 18 over. So I have x squared plus 3x minus 18 equals 0. Now I'm going to try to factor this thing. To factor it, what you're doing, see the leading coefficient here, this is understood to be a 1. It's like 1x squared. If that's the case, then all you have to do is look at the last term right here, this negative 18, and you're looking for two numbers that multiply up to negative 18. It's a product of negative 18. And they have to add up to, they have to have a sum, I just put an S for sum, of the middle term, which is 3. A sum of 3. So you ask yourself what times what equals negative 18 and adds up to 3. And those two numbers are 6 and negative 3. And sometimes that takes a little bit of practice for you to figure out what those factors are. So then you open up two sets of parentheses, and then you put your factors in with x plus 6 for the first one and x minus 3 for the second one. And now I set both of these factors equal to 0. So x plus 6 equals 0 or x minus 3 equals 0. On the first one I subtract the 6 over and I get x equals negative 6. And on the second one I just add the 3 over and I get x equals positive 3. Now this isn't an ordered pair, it's just x could be negative 6 or it could be 3.